Good evening and salutations, my Y&R fans. So, let's talk about Jack for a minute. So, after Jack finished thanking Phyllis for, coming with him to LA and just dealing with Diane and Allie and that whole stuff, he gets home and Billy, Ashley, I think that's her name, um, and Tracy is there. So he talks a little bit about Allie and, how great it was meeting her. And, they're all looking forward to meeting her at one point. Well, except for Ashley. But, what Jack said was Jack was like, listen, she's apprehensive about this whole thing. Same thing with Ashley. So, it's a good chance to get along. Now, with that being said, he does kind of stall because it's like, all right, I'm going to give you the good news and then I'm going to give you the bad news. And he tells them all about Diane being alive and that's who the mystery texter was. It takes a while for them to kind of accept it. And Jack is like, she had help, which was Deacon. After all of that, um they're all pretty angry and apprehensive. And at this point Jack is like, I gotta sit there and tell Kyle. I gotta sit there and tell Kyle before Diane does. Now there's one point, um I think Billy or Tracy, somebody was like, there's a good chance that Diane will sit there and come to Genoa City. And Ashley's like, well, no, you can't let that happen, Jack. You can't let that happen or whatever. I was like, whoa, is Jack mayor of this town? Because I'm literally just thinking like that just puzzled the hell out of me. I mean, Ashley was sent there telling Jack to not let Diane in Genoa City like he had a choice in the matter. I didn't really understand that. Um, And also, Jack was sitting there talking about Phyllis and how great she was and just, keeping them grounded and everything like that. And, even Ashley had to sit there and say, well, that's good because apparently Ashley and Phyllis seem like they got a bit of history, which I wouldn't be too surprised because here's the thing. I don't even know Ashley that well, but she seems like she's a piece of work, and so does Phyllis. So I can totally understand how two women that just seem like they have that same type of energy will definitely sit there and go at it with each other. Especially given Phyllis and her track record with Jack. Yeah, I can kind of understand that. But she did have to sit there and give her props where props are due. Um, Now, Phyllis was sitting there talking to Amanda, and she was sort of giving her an update, and everything that happened, just talking about like the trip was intense and this, that, and the third. But she doesn't really get into it as far as Diane being back. Um, she doesn't get into that part, which is, I don't know, like if your friend comes over, and I get that you don't want your friend to know, this person's business, but at the same time, it's like, how you gonna sit there and give her an update with like half of the damn facts missing? Um, it's kind of an odd way to sit there and even tell a story. But with that being said, Amanda's like, she's looking at this whole trip like there's something more. Um, you know, let's be honest. At first, she thought that Phyllis dropped everything and went down to LA. I mean, well, she thought that Jack asked her to do it. And when she was like, no, he didn't, I chose to go down there, she thought it was something more romantic. And of course, Phyllis is all like, oh, we're just friends and yada, yada, yada. Um, Now, from what I understand, what somebody told me, Phyllis did cheat on Jack. I don't know their rocky relationship. I don't know if Jack was, pretty nasty to her as well. I mean, you got 80s and 90s Jack, and 80s and 90s Jack is, well, it's a lot different than the Mr. Rogers version of what we see today. So I don't know what their relationship was like, but All Phyllis keeps Nick saying is, well, he just needs a friend, and I just need a friend, and we can all be friends. And I don't know. Maybe she believes that. Maybe she wants to believe that because she still has feelings for him. Um, I mean, I know that she had that whole breakup with Nick, and I'm going to be honest, I don't even remember that. I don't remember that mostly because I stopped watching it halfway through it, and I came back and started watching it again. So whatever it was somebody told me it was actually really stupid. Like they got into this argument and they just like broke up, and it was like, okay, was that like a really fast way of them just hitting the reset button, or? So anyway, they talk about that for a little bit, and then well, she's the boss, so she decides to go for a spa day. Now, with that being said, Diane comes in, and Diane decides to get a room at Phyllis's hotel, and I'm just like, wow, that is hilarious. Um, there's so many different hotels that she could have took Redis, like she could have lived in, and she chose Phyllis's. Like, what do you think's gonna end up happening when she sees you? Like, seriously, you think you just gonna be just chilling, just hanging out there? Like, what's your backup plan? So let's talk about the Newmans for a minute, and this is Nick, Nikki, Victor, and Victoria. So at this point, the way that Victoria Smith they're acting, you got the family a little bit worried. They're like, "Yo, listen, are you still a part of this plan? Are you still gonna, you still gonna do this, right? Because it's not like you having feelings for this guy, even though that he's been lying to you and everyone else for well a very long time now." And now he's giving you some sort of sob story, whatever, and he's backpedaling. Um, are you still about this plan? That's number one. Are you still about this plan? And Victoria gives this mixed answer of, well, yeah, I mean, rather I still have some sort of residual feelings or not, I'm still going to go through with the plan. I'm like, you ain't making the people in the room feel any more comfortable after you just said that. Actually, to tell you the truth, I think you made them feel even less comfortable about this whole thing. And on top of that, the way he keeps backpedaling, Nick is like, is it possible that he caught on to this plan? Um, but they're more focused on her because they're like, yo, listen, you gotta either be Team Newman or Team Locke. Like, where are you at with this whole thing? And then she starts acting like the little ice princess that she's always been. Now, one of the things she did sit there and say was, isn't it possible that he could be very cold and ruthless, but still sit there and love me, kind of like the relationship that her dad and her mom has? And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's not really relevant to this conversation because the dude lied to you. He used you. Are you forgetting that? Are we just going to act like that didn't happen? Oh, well, maybe he's not. Like, what are you doing? So she gets all frustrated, like the ice princess that she is, and she's all like, "Why don't you guys sit there and trust my plan? Why don't you trust my plan?" I was like, "Well, one, because the plan don't seem like it's working, and number two, you seem like you're very flip flop about this whole plan. I mean, about this whole, getting Ashlyn. So, I mean, she gets mad at them, when in reality, it's her, whatever the hell it is that she's going through. But apparently, they're the problem, and they're the people that isn't trusting her plan. So she gets so angry that she decides to storm off like the. Anyway, at some point, she was up talking to Adam, and Adam is like, Adam comes over there. This is after Adam talks to Ashley. Adam comes over there and he's like, "So let me guess, your plan didn't work. There's just too many things that could have just went wrong, and I pretty much kind of called it, right?" So at this point, the Ice Princess, being all super defensive, is like, "Well, I've accomplished so much more than you." I'm like, "What? Where did that come from? Where did that come from? That's like you having a discussion with somebody, and they know that they're wrong, and the citizen is saying, well, yeah, I gotta sit there, man. It wasn't really a good plan. You decide you want to sit there and be like, well, you're you have cooties or something like that. It's like, what? So of course, she gets defensive. She's like, "Well, I accomplished more than you. You're still losing." And then she just kind of gets all angry and walks off. And I'm just like, "Sweetheart, this was your plan that is clearly falling off the rails." And Adam called it. Adam called it. Your family called it. You just you didn't listen to anyone, and now you're stuck in this little ish hole. And is it instead of you actually admitting, hey, you know what, this plan isn't really working the way I want it to work. Yeah, Adam, I'm just, I don't like you, but what's your plan? No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that because pride and reasons and all that other stuff. Now, Adam was about to say Ashley or Ashlyn. Then you got an Ashlyn and you got an Ashley. That's great. So yeah, Adam is there making this deal or trying to make this deal with Ashlyn. Now, one of the things he was saying was 5 billion. I could have swore I heard him sit there and say 5 billion. Okay, 5 billion was the asking price of him just getting the hell up out of Genoa City, start a new life, buy an island. I don't care, do something, just get the hell up out of here. And the whole time, Ashlyn's like, "Are you sure you're the one to be snicked and making that deal? Like, don't you need your daddy's approval? Like, does he even know that you're doing this?" Now, at the time, I didn't think that Victor knew about this whole plan. And my whole thing was like, what happens when he decides to verify your offer? You know, Adam gave him this 24-hour, on the clock if you're going to do it or not. And if you don't do it, then you don't get any money. He's like, "Oh, I got to sit there and think about this." And he was like, "Well, you got 1 hour, 24 hours. You got, is it 1 hour? Or is it 24? Okay. Remember that word billion now." So at some point, Ashton comes back to the office and he talks to Nikki and Victor. And Ashton's like, "All right, so listen, I just finished talking to your son." And, he gave me the offer. I felt like this is one of those things where he came to that office. He told him half of the truth. He was like, "Hey, so your son just talking to me about the plan, about the offer." It doesn't say what offer it is. It's just about the offer. And I think he was like, "It's a lot of money." At some point, he was like, "Well, it's a lot of money. I mean, I gotta sit there and consider it." And I think that's when Victor was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, 5 million. I mean, it's yeah, I mean, he wouldn't sit there and do that without my say so or whatever." And I'm like, 5 million. I swear I heard I say 5 billion. Now, a million and billion may not seem like that much of a difference, but it's a difference. And more important, it's not consistent. Unless I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I mean, it's kind of late. I could be wrong, but I could have swore I heard somebody sit there and say 5 billion, and now we dropped it to 5 million. So one of the things that Ashton said was, when I walked into office and I told you about this whole little deal, you almost seemed like you didn't know what I was talking about. Um, he was like, you almost seemed like you didn't know what I was talking about. And Victoria walks in, and she's like, "What's going on?" And Ashton lays it right out. Ashton's like, "Hey, listen, I just talked to your family, and well, between Adam, your dad, and pretty much everyone, your whole family, pretty much, they want to pay me X amount of money to leave you and leave General City forever. So, what do you want to happen? Do you think I should take the deal and we just go our separate ways, or what?" And at this point, Victoria just has this look of like hurt or sadness on her face, and I'm like, "You you're something else. You really are something else." Um, all Adam did, well, all Sally did was pretty much have Adam tell her about the plan and if he's going to take it, and how Victoria was sitting there acting, and pretty much more or less, Adam was like, "Yeah, this plan is just going to hell at this point." But I forgot to sit there and say when Adam first approached Victoria, Victoria did sit there and say, "Well, there may be a change in plans." But she doesn't sit there and say what the changes are, and Adam gets upset like, "Yo, listen, you are literally throwing me to the wolves, and now you can't even sit there and keep me informed on what the changes is." So he's upset about that. I forgot to talk about that. Um, but he does tell Sally, yeah, that the plan it looked like it's going sideways fast. And Sally does agree. I don't remember else what they talk about, but I don't feel like it might have been too much of anything too important. But at this point, partly I'm sitting there looking at this whole thing, and I'm like, why did I feel like Adam was the one that actually had the brains enough to sit there and say, by the way, Dad, I don't know if this whole plan is really going to work. He may figure it out. And then what? Of course, Victor's like, well, you leave that to me because I got things under control. Really, bro? You, you really got things under control. You got this. This show is funny. I feel like that's about it. Nick really didn't do too much of anything. He was kind of just there. He did blame himself, feeling like he pushed too hard on Victoria. I'm like, Victoria seems like she's so cool. She likes. Here's the thing: Victoria likes to sit there, and I haven't watched the show that long, but I feel like Victoria likes to sit there and put on this facade of she's like bold and strong and this, that, and the third. And I get that everyone has their breaking points, but I'm like, sweetheart, they're literally sitting there at best giving you tough love and making sure that you're part of the team. And you're flip flopping, and I'm not too sure. Oh, I need some time to sit there and think alone. The chick that actually had the plan that so-called looped us into it is not really happy that we're questioning whether she Team Newman or Team Locke. Yeah, I feel like that's about it for the most part. Yeah, I feel like that's about it for the most part. So with that being said, I'm gonna go. I want to thank you for watching. Be safe. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. See you in the next video.